You are tuned in to The Richard Brown Show here on WCOM LP, Chapel Hill and Carborough, 103.5 FM. And I'm Richard Brown, and I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day and spending it with me. Let me take a second and kind of talk about what the show's all about and answer some questions that I've been getting as I've been getting emails, as I've been talking to people who has said they've seen the show. This show is a place that I continue to want to expand. And what I mean by expansion, it's a place where I want to continue to expand the conversation that African Americans are having. One of my fears, one of my concerns is that the images that you see of African Americans, what you hear about African Americans, for the large part, is a lot of negative stuff. Radical on the edge, those types of questions. And it is viewed as negative. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it. So what I want to do here is I want us, and I can give you some examples. One of the examples is, African Americans, these stereotypes are, we just like certain types of food, and we like certain types of music, and we're loud, boisterous, and not very interested in many other things. And so what I want to do, what I am doing, what we do on the show is we talk about expanding that space. We are not just about basketball, although I do like basketball quite a bit. We are not just about there's not one monolith African American thought. There are multiple things that we are interested in, and what I want to do is I want to expand what those conversations are, because what I find is when I look at other media outlets, I see that there's just not a lot of diversity. Say for example, in the last 2 months, I've had comedians on, I've had a professor on that I'll be referencing her work in just a moment. I've had a small business owner as well as a small business technical assistance person on, all within the last, say, 3 months. And we've talked about a number of things. And for me, what has happened is there's been several themes, meta themes, let's use that word, meta themes, that have continued to come up. And it's this idea of it's this idea of being conscious about what's happening, whether it be in your business, whether it be in how you're getting ready to, the types of risks you are going to take. That, for me, that expansion and those different conversations aren't had in many places. I have done a lot of reading in my life, and you get to a point where you start to read and you're reading the same thing over and over and over again, if you say in the same genre, because people are parroting from some of the greats, and they say, well, this is what sells. So part of what I want to do today is talk a little bit about that form, some of my, let's call them musings, let's call them thoughts. But what I want to do today is I want to talk about the different forms and how in particular those forms are in some instances helping African Americans or helping the community as a whole, and in some instances not helping. I'm also going to use some of the examples of current events that are going on right here in North Carolina that I think a lot of people are starting to catch, not necessarily catch, but a lot of people are starting to be aware of. So first, I want to thank you again for tuning into the Richard Brown Show. And today, I encourage you to just take a second, hear what I have to say, and see if it sits with you. I think that a lot of times what you hear from people in the media is that my way is right. everybody else is wrong, and if you don't believe in the things that I am saying, then, you know, sorry for you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is these are my views, these are my thoughts, and if they make sense to you, then by all means, please add them to how you move about your day. If they don't make sense to you, then, you know, they don't make sense. Perhaps what they will become is a seed for the future, and perhaps, you know, they will just fall on deaf ears, but that's okay. I suspect that everybody's not going to believe as I do, and it's okay if we don't agree. But what I'm interested in is engaging you in a conversation to say, well, what exactly do you believe? Let's be very clear about it. Let's say, well, those people who we can come to a common idea, then let us work together. And I think if we do that, we'll be fine. We will be fine. So I want to start off with the form. And I mentioned reading. And that's a perfectly good place to start. So, how many people actually are reading a book right now? And what type of book is it? Are you reading? I mean, you know, it's summer, so, you know, I know that I have been reading some of my summer books, and that's good. Have been relaxing. I know I've been reading some other things as well. I've also been listening to quite a bit of music, and I hear us, and I hear myself in past shows. I hear a lot of people say, well, you know, certain people have bully pulpits, and they're not using their bully pulpit to the best of their ability. They are, you know, there's been various conferences that talk about the rappers, and the rappers should be doing more for the community. I agree with that, but this conversation, or at least my thought process for right now, really starts to question how or why we're asking them to do that. So in my mind, I want to talk in general about 3 different forms of communication. The first I've just mentioned, reading, writing. The second is audio, DVDs, I guess not DVDs, but CDs, MP3s. The third is visual. Of those 3, most of the time we as individuals have a certain preference to which one we deal with more. Having dinner with some neighbors, and they mentioned that they listened quite a bit to the radio. So they clearly have a preference. It's something that they can do, and, you know, maybe perhaps get work done around the house or while they're driving, etc., etc. So in general, we have a preference. So now, what I believe is when we have that preference lays down a track in our brain, and it becomes easier and easier, and we form habits around using that preference, whether it be, again, video or, say, TV, movies, etc., etc. We generally have a preference for that. That's what we do most. Like if you break out your day, you can say, well, I spend... And, you know, there are multitude of stories that talk about how young kids should be watching TV, but they still get 2 to 3 hours of TV at least a day. We as adults probably get much more than that, etc., etc. Some of us, again, have a preference as it relates to audio. So we're listening to it as we drive during a long commute from home to work. Some of us are listening to it at our place of business. And some of us, again, are listening to it at home, either because we're at home or when we get home from work. And then it's the one that I would say, in general, has been not necessarily struggling, but has probably been losing market share.